And we welcome you to the second segment of the starting lineup. Great to have you with us, folks, on a beautiful Thursday. Starting lineup brought to you by Play It Again Sports and the Fremont Shopping Center, Battlefield and Fremont Springfield. Great deals for you, including trade-ins at Play It Again Sports. By Citizens Bank of Rogersville with two locales, one adjacent to Highland Springs and the other in Rogersville. By Swing Right Golf. You got it, guys. It's on South Campbell Avenue, a little bit north of Nixa, and by Marshfield Chevrolet at the I-44 exit. Couple of left turns, and you're there at Marshfield Chevrolet. Ned Reynolds along with
Scott Purrier, and we should point out that Art Haynes is not with us for the next few days. Art is on his way to Greensboro, North Carolina. He'll be receiving the Missouri Broadcaster of the Year award on Monday night at a banquet out there. So we'll be without Art for a few days, but we're going to talk some Link Hoops basketball right now. Link has a new coach. His name is Mike Peck. Link, of course, the academy down in Branson, had a big night the last couple nights. 5 players drafted in the NBA draft, 5 alums, 4 in the first round, 1 in the second round last night. And it's our pleasure to welcome in Coach Mike Peck. Coach, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing great. And of course, you know, when we do our show prep and we do the bio and the background, and we saw that you came from Detroit Mercy as an assistant there, several other stops at the D1 level, some NBA D-League head coaching experience. But the one that caught our eye and caught Ned's eye was you really kind of started out as a video coordinator back in the day for one Charlie Spoonhour.
Absolutely. I was with him in his last year there at UNLV and stayed on, was fortunate to be retained by Lon Kruger for 2 years before I jumped into the prep side for the first time.
Coach, you can add that to the experience of a lifetime, because when Spoon was down here as a head coach, he owned the Ozarks. Everybody loved him, and he's the kind of guy who happens in your lives once, only once. He had a great influence on us. How about you?
Tremendous individual, tremendous coach. I caught him, unfortunately, on the back end of his career. Would have loved to have been with him longer, spent more time with him in that regard. But I tried to embrace as much of that year as I could with him, and obviously his son Jay.
Mm-hmm. Any good Spoon stories? Did you adapt quickly to the Ozarkisms that he throws out there?
I tell you what I found comforting especially in Vegas, you know, with that hustle and bustle and the speed of that pace of that city, his draw, you know, that southern Midwestern draw was just kind of calming and soothing.
Absolutely. And of course, as we mentioned, big night for Link the last couple nights with the draft. You are new to the program down there. I noticed on social media said you're the first Link coach to sign a 3-year contract, so you're planning on being around for a little while, and you've got some work to do filling in a roster, don't you?
Amen. No, it's the vision that they have here, the support and the resources that they've obviously committed to it, speaks volumes for this program in terms of the future and how serious they are about it. And that's what really drew me to it and jumping back in on this side. And then obviously the people, you know, it takes a village, you know, it's not one person's, you know, I'm fortunate to be, you know, the head coach and to kind of lead the program. But let me tell you, there are so many people behind the scenes in the same line of fire with me that make this thing happen and work, and you know, we're just excited about it.
You're starting from the ground level because you have no returnees, is that correct?
That is 100% correct.
Now, how do you, and this is a national scale on which you're recruiting, how do you go about that? What's the method?
Well, the fortunate thing for Link at this stage is that the brand is so strong. You know how it is in society, and sure, the kids now, they want to be, everybody wants to be linked, or no pun intended, to a strong brand. And, you know, and Link's brand is so strong in this landscape of elite high school basketball. And then obviously the success that players have had and then the program has had, those two things coupled together make for a tremendous brand that, you know, everybody wants to be a part of. So it does make it a little easier, but there are a ton of options out there for kids that are looking to make a move and enhance their high school careers and finish out their high school careers before they go to college. So that does make it a little bit challenging. And then the trickle-down effect of NIL and all those other things that are happening at the college level, unfortunately, that gets down to this level as well.
Well, it probably helps when you can pick up the phone and call a kid and his parents and say, hey, do you want to come play at a place that just had 5 NBA draft picks that came through here? That's not a bad selling point there. But I think one of your best recruiting jobs is that there's a 6'3" guard that'll be a junior named Gavin Peck that played in we were pronouncing it Bourne because it's spelled like Jason Bourne, but Boerne, Texas. You were able to convince your son to come play for Dad, correct?
Yes, it didn't take a ton of convincing, but he's at a stage now where his high school coach did a tremendous job with that program. It's a 5A program, but it's in an area that's not really a hotbed for turning out Division I basketball players. But he had a tremendous sophomore year. Credit to his teammates and his coaches for that. But he's ready for that next level of development in terms of doing what he ultimately wants to do and going to college and playing through college.
When you tell the folks it's not a hotbed of Texas, where is Boerne?
Boerne's just a little north of the San Antonio area.
Uh-huh. Mostly football down there, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely, 1,000%.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Coach Peck, I wanted to ask you your path to Link. Kind of take us back through, we mentioned the start as a video coordinator. You did some D2 work, then joined Spoon at UNLV. Kind of take us from there where your journeys have taken you as a coach.
Yep. So after UNLV, like I said, I was fortunate to be retained by Lon Kruger for 2 years, and that was phenomenal. Lon Kruger's an unbelievable human being, and obviously on his way to the Hall of Fame in coaching. So I learned a lot and was tremendously excited and fortunate to be with him. But then I was in that video role, and I told him, Coach, I have no problem. I love serving this program in this capacity, but I don't want to get pigeonholed. I'm a coach doing the video job, not a video guy trying to be a coach. So if there's anything out there that you think is a good fit, I'd appreciate your help in that regard. And that's when the Finley Prep thing kind of came up. And he kind of asked me, is that something you'd be interested in doing? And I was just more excited about being back on the floor and teaching and being, in the trenches with the players. And I said, sure, let's give it a shot. And let me tell you, it was like catching lightning in a bottle. That thing took off like wildfire. And we had a tremendous amount of success, fortunately, and blessed to have a ton of good players that obviously make you a better coach. And then did that for 6 years. And then from there, in an unprecedented move, I beat some of my players to the NBA. The Portland Trailblazers called and said, "Hey, we need a head coach for our D-League team, and we'd love to talk to you about it." And sure enough, that conversation happened, and within 24 hours, it was a done deal. And I was headed up to Portland and was the head coach of their D-League team in Boise, Idaho, and did that for 2 years, and that was an unbelievable experience. I absolutely loved it. And then after that, took a year off and kind of regrouped to think, do I want to continue the pro route, or do I want to get back to where I'm more suited or comfortable in the college game? And I spent that year traveling around, visiting some programs and leaning on some people that I really that have mentored me throughout this. And I just felt better in the college landscape just because that's where most of my background was. And so I did that for a year, and then I got on at Santa Clara University for 1 year. And then because of my time at UNLV with Coach Kruger, I got to be close with Steve Henson, who was an assistant. And then Steve they had that tremendous run with Buddy Hield and went to the Final Four. And Steve had an opportunity to take over at University of Texas San Antonio. And I'll never forget, I was at home. And, sometimes when you try to line up these jobs and, how are you connected? Maybe I can get this guy to call for me. And you get everything in place and you think, I got a chance. And you never have a chance. Well, I'm sitting there. I haven't showered in 2 days. I'm in my boxers at home. And Steve calls me and tells me, hey, it's probably going to be San Antonio. He goes, what do you think? And I said, well, go do the interview and, then call me back after and, we'll talk. And sure enough, he did. And it was history after that, so I did nothing to line that up. That was all from a previous relationship and stuff. So did that for 8 years. We had a tremendous run, turned it around initially, and then got in a little bit of a got a little stagnant there at the end and didn't get retained. And then I got on at Detroit Mercy with Mark Montgomery, who was a Michigan State guy, as you guys know. I've known Monty since we both got in the business back in 96, 97-ish, and kind of stayed in touch with him every once in a while, and we bump into each other on the recruiting trail, and we're both Michigan guys, and so that relationship obviously made it make sense, and he offered me a spot on his staff, and we had a first, we took over a program that won one game before we got there, and that first year we won 8, and then last year we flipped the script and we won 17 games and had a tremendous run, retained 40 points for this year's roster and 6 returners, and they're going to have another great year. So, and that led me to this. Like I always say, if things weren't really set up here and all I's dotted and T's crossed, and I didn't feel like it was a supported program with a tremendous vision, I would never have relinquished my role at the Division I level, because you know how hard it is to get in. But when I came down here and through conversations with Adam, this has everything you need and then some. Like, there's nothing I came into this with saying, yeah, well, I'll work on, maybe help seeing if we can't get this or get that. Everything's in place for what you need to have and be successful, which is obviously why they've had such great success.
You were probably a kid, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Dick Vitale coached at Detroit University for a short time.
Yes, he did. He has the court. His name is on the court.
Wow, that's and a great spokesman probably still for that university. But wanted to ask you, we've seen the coaches down at Link. Rodney Perry goes to the D1 bench as an assistant. Bill Armstrong comes from D1 at LSU, does a great job, goes to Baylor, and now is another head. Is it Northwest Louisiana? I think for Bill, I believe, or McNeese, that's right. Yeah, I get my Louisianas mixed up. Chad Myers, who you're replacing, just left to go be the director of recruiting at Vanderbilt. He left last month for that job. It's very clear that this school needs people that are used to recruiting and going to find talent, because you've had to completely you're going to have to rebuild a roster now, and that's the nature of the beast at this level. How does recruiting to a Link Academy differ from recruiting to the colleges you've been at, in terms of what you can tell already?
Yeah, well, first of all, you're back at you're dealing with players. At least where I was at, I was kind of at the mid-major level at UTSA in Detroit, and so now I'm back recruiting a level of player that's kind of a P4, P5 level guy, high major guys, which is nice, because those guys are that level for a reason, and they, like I said, good players make you a really good coach. So I like that fact, and the brand is stronger. In terms of when you say Link in the basketball world, people, their eyes light up, and they know. You don't have to say, well, we're an elite program based in Branson, Missouri, and we can be. You don't have to go into all those explanations. Yeah. They clearly know, and then it's just about fit. My big thing, like everybody talks about that, is we're going to get good players, but we're going to get the right good players. It's one thing to amass a bunch of talent, but you get too much, and let me tell you, a 32-minute game with one ball, guys aren't going to be happy. They're going to leave before you get started. So, you want to roster assembly and construction is so critical in terms of getting the right pieces, and it's got to fit you as a coach and your personality and your style of play that you envision for the program. There's guys, when I was at Findlay Prep, there were talented players, uber talented players that we just passed on, and I don't mean to say that to brag about it. It's just, they weren't fits. They weren't fits for me and our program and what we were trying to accomplish. And that's okay, because there's a lot of good players out there and a lot of talented players. It's, number one, identifying the right ones that fit you and your program, and then trying to get them, to fit into the puzzle and blend with everybody else. With
the name Link, so obviously very popular around the country, does that mean that your schedule is probably already set for next year, or is that still incumbent on you?
Yeah, no, it's kind of set. Dates are kind of locked. Opponents are kind of still fluid, but the dates are kind of locked in. We've got some dates that we can sprinkle in games, but a lot of the weekends are already booked up through April. So we're kind of set in that regard, and we'll kind of, there's some, as a matter of fact, that we've got to decide. We've got too much on the plate, so to speak, and we got to say, okay, we're not going to do this event, but we'll do these two, and go back and forth with that.
Well, Coach, I know you've probably got a bunch of new best friends here in the last couple months, D1 coaches that want to try to create a pipeline. I guess my question is, because you have to, it's like a D1 roster anymore. You may have to just replace the entire thing. Why is it so hard at this academy level to retain kids more than 1 year? Is it the competition from other schools contacting them and wanting to, hey, come over to our place instead. We'll give you 20 shots a game instead of 10 or whatever. Kind of talk about that aspect. Is it harder recruiting or as hard at this level you think it's going to be than it was even at the college level?
Great question. And like I always say, I think it's a sign of the times. I think, everybody has a different reason for wanting to make moves and leave a program or go to a different program. And, I can't speak to every kid, but what I will say the trend is, and I think it's a generational thing. Like, it's kind of like, I liken it to fashion. Trends don't last as long in fashion as they did when we were younger. And I think the same thing is true. Kids are leaving programs and going to other programs. And if you ask them, well, why are you leaving? What was wrong with where you were? Well, nothing. I just want something different. And I think that's like, I'm old, I don't want to date myself, but if I like strawberry candy, that's all I'm going to eat. Whereas kids now, they're like, I like strawberry, so I'll have 2 or 3 of those, but then I'm going to have a grape. Well, why did you switch? I just want something different. Well, do you not like strawberry anymore? No, I still like strawberry. They just want something different. And then it's easy. They see their friends or their peers do it, so they feel compelled and they feel the pressure that they have to do it, because of social media. Well, that's what everybody's doing, so that's what I'm going to do or I need to do in order to fit in and be part of the trend, so to speak. So it's really hard to gauge. I think that's happening a lot, but everybody they have options now. You know what I mean? Like before, like with international kids, I love dealing with international kids. I've had a great history with recruiting international kids and international kids playing for me. And the part with them is they're a lot, not all of them, but they're usually a little bit more mature and ahead of their time, and they're a little bit more locked in and focused. And when they come here, their approach and their mindset is where I'm at and where I put my feet, it has to work. I have to make it work because I can't go back. That's not an option. So they buy in immediately. They do everything that you ask them to do, and they do it at a level of 10 plus, So I think everybody's case is different, but clearly it has become a thing for kids to make moves and to do it more frequently than they have in the past.
Coach, before we let you go, I know that I saw on the Link Hoops Twitter account that you guys have a new gym opening. Is that a practice gym, or is that going to be a new home for home games as well?
That's going to be for home games, okay. And that's unbelievable. Like that it will be the third gym on campus, and like we tell kids all the time, the first question I was talking to these kids on Zooms and stuff. As many questions as they have for me, I say, okay, well, you have any more questions? And they say no, and I say, well, good. Now is my turn. We're speed dating. I got some questions for you. I need to know where your mind is at and what your, where you're, and get a grasp for you as quickly and as much as I can. And I interview them just as much as they interview me. And the first question I ask is, what do you want and what are you looking for in this experience? And they answer that question. And, obviously I'm looking to hear what, certain things that I want to hear from a head coach that to get and understand that I'm getting the right person. I want to win. I just want to get better. I want to go against the best, In our setup, you literally lay your head down and sleep, and you open your door, and 150 to 200 feet, not yards, you're in a gym cheating.
Yeah.
And if you're about getting better and you want an atmosphere and an environment where you can lock in and you can invest for the next 8 months, if you're a senior, it's a lifetime investment that can change your life.
That's awesome. Well, and I've got a suggestion for a grand opening for the gym. Why don't we have a Link alumni game and invite all the guys back and let them play? And I think there might be a few people, Ned, that would show up to that.
Elliot Cadeau probably would.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean,
yes.
The names you can throw out there now are pretty impressive.
Oh my gosh, and one of the things that Adam and I talked about, because Link's been around long enough now, it's established. What we need to start thinking about is, obviously like those alumni returning, having an alumni gathering, and the timing is always critical because guys now are in the pros, guys have schedules that are so crazy. But, what we'll need to start thinking about, and we've talked about is, we're going to, I think a Link Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
The Link Academy Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. Coach, appreciate your time. Look forward to talking to you throughout the next few winters, and best of luck on the recruiting trail.
Appreciate you guys.
You bet. Thank you.
And when Link Academy sets foot on the court, Coach Peck will be guiding that team. We'll take a timeout on the starting lineup. Be right back. Great having you with us on the starting lineup, and welcome back, folks. Starting lineup brought to you by Play It Again Sports, by Swing Right Golf, by Marshfield Chevrolet, and Citizens Bank of Rogersville. Ned Reynolds along with
Scott Purrier.
Lots going on.
Great interview there with Coach Peck. Welcome him to the Ozarks, and sounds like he's going to be a great fit at Link.
Did you catch wasn't exactly his final statement, but toward the end when he said he liked coaching the international players?
Yeah.
Because their whole focus is different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that impacted me. And you see that with them because they have a different mindset as to how the game should be played and a different diligence. He pointed that out. I thought did a very good job of it.
Yeah, and a guy like that's been so many experiences from, D1 to the D-League to Findlay Prep. He's seen it all, and it sounds like that's a guy that's going to – and he's been recruiting for Detroit Mercy and UTSA, places like that. He's going to fit right in terms of finding that talent.
Indeed.
And we didn't get into it, but I just wonder how much the NIL thing has seeped into even their level now.
Oh, I think probably it has.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got IMG or Sunrise Christian and Link all going for the same player, what is the difference maker? And are these kids saying, hey, I need $25,000 to come down and play there this year? And it'd be interesting to see now what they need to do. And we talked about an alumni game. Some of those guys that are signing these big NBA contracts need to kick back a little bit, probably for NIL fund if they want to see Link keep doing what they're doing. Because
there isn't any question that would certainly be not required, but certainly be a big help to them. I think more than anything else, the money's important under today's circumstances. But you know what else is? The name. Yeah. Getting the name out there. I played at Link Academy, or I played at Oak Hill or something like that. It does make a big difference.
If they did the deal like they do in the NFL when they announce the starters and they get to say where they're from,
exactly.
The NBA starts doing that and they say Link Academy. That's going to resonate a little bit.
And there are some who would do that.
Absolutely,
sure.
Next interview is Eli Hoff coming up in about 5 minutes talking Mizzou athletics. Some of the things we didn't get to because of the time crunch. One other thing, we talked about the NCAA approved the 5 years to play 5 rule will take effect actually for incoming class members. Coaches have the option apparently with the athlete to decide if they want that to apply this year, but it will definitely be in effect for 2027.
Now, explain very quickly how it works. It is 5 years to play 5.
And the clock starts when you turn the semester after you turn 19 or the year. So that's when it starts. There's a lot to unpack here. I wonder if this means that kids are going to reclassify earlier to get you only get 5, right? So
and this does not include redshirt.
No, there'll be no red. No, there'll be no more redshirt.
No redshirt.
So let's say a 17-year-old reclassifies to start at 18. Does he still only get 5, or does he get, because the clock doesn't start till 19? Is he getting an extra year? There's a lot of things I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know that either.
Yeah, and but then there's also I saw somebody commenting about what about BYU in places where
there is a dispensation given to the schools that do have the missions that they have, and I think probably to age too to veterans.
Yeah,
I think that's going to come into effect.
And then somebody else said, well, this is just going to open up a whole other level of lawsuit too. You deny a kid because he wasn't eligible for 2 years and his clock already started and you can't take those years away. We're going to go right back into the courtroom.
Scott, is there anything in the world that is not open to the courts anymore? And to some judge will say, bring him on in.
Mom and dad encourage your kids to become attorneys because there'll always be work for them going forward. So the other thing that I thought was interesting was now any team making the transition from FCS to FBS in football will no longer have to wait to qualify for postseason play. That's a new NCAA rule that came out yesterday. And, of course, we saw that with the Bears. And, they made the jump this last year from FCS to FBS. There was some, questions about whether even if they got to 6-6, if they would be eligible, would they have to apply for a waiver and things like that. That's no longer a condition anymore.
It is not. And there are variances in the rules that are coming down now from the NCAA that do have an immediate impact on what goes on. I'm glad you brought that up too. The 5 years is the big one though.
Absolutely, and so we'll see. What kind of and it was kind of a dumb rule anyway. I mean, if you're going to pay to make the move, you ought to be eligible,
of course,
to go get a bowl game that first year without having to go apply for anything. So. Yet the Bears announcements on players, signees for basketball with Conzo Martin's team. Yesterday it was 6'7" forward Leano Rolle. Leano Rolle.
How does he spell his last name?
Rolle, but it's pronounced Rolle. 6'7" forward, comes out of Southwest Mississippi Community College, originally a native from the Bahamas, and is the 10th player announced for that class. And so it looks like at Southwest Mississippi, he averaged 14 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block for that team. And that gives the Bears 10 new players now on the list, and most of them are 6'7" or taller for the most part.
I love that little bit, too, earlier with Coach McHenry about the watch party that was held last night. I think Conzo was there.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, and that's awesome. He showed up for a kid that he actually started the college career for him with him at Mizzou. A couple other notes before we go to break and then get Eli Hoff. The Arkansas will rename its football stadium. It's no longer going to be Donald Reynolds Stadium. It is now Community America. That's a credit union. Community America Razorback Stadium starting.
So it does retain Razorback in there.
Yes, yeah. Razorback Stadium there. So big money deal there for a credit union, which I believe is based kind of in the Kansas City area.
Not familiar with them.
Somebody said that Jackson Mahomes is like one of their business development and marketing. Wow. So new name for the Arkansas football stadium. I think the Razorback fans would just prefer, can we win at least 7 game stadium, and get on that side of things again. And one note from the GLVC, Indianapolis is leaving the conference starting in 28. They are going to join the Great Midwest Conference. And
who's in
the
it?
GMAC. That's the one that, if you remember, Kentucky Wesleyan left to join back then. The commissioner of that conference is actually Tommy Dager, who is the assistant commissioner in the GLVC in my early years there. But you look at it and you kind of think that it's a Great Midwest Athletic Conference.
And where is it headquartered?
It's based, I'm not sure where it's headquartered, but it's got a lot of Michigan teams, Indiana, Ohio. So, talking to Niall, I did my podcast with Niall Millison. A lot of it's for geographics and financial moves, for travel, because, and of course, Drury's not heartbroken over the fact that now the furthest east they go is probably the state of Illinois. In the days where they used to have to go originally to northern Kentucky and Cincinnati and Louisville and Evansville and Indianapolis and beautiful scenic Rensselaer, Indiana for St. Joe. Those days are gone now. So it sounds like India's making the move, and they've been a long time.
But the northern trips to Michigan, like Grand Valley and places like that, do exist?
Yeah. Well, for who? For Drury?
For Drury, yes.
They're all now pretty much in Missouri and Illinois, with Upper Iowa kind of being the outlier there. But Kentucky Wesleyan is in this league. I was trying to see Tiffin, teams like that, Findlay, Tiffin, some of those teams. So maybe a travel benefit.
You said Findlay is in this thing?
Findlay's in that league too. So, all right, let's take a timeout. Let's talk some Mizzou athletics with Eli Hoff.
You are listening to the starting lineup, and we will return in a second. And it is great to have you with us on the starting lineup, brought to you by Play It Again Sports, by Swing Right Golf, by Citizens Bank of Rogersville, and by Marshfield Chevrolet. Ned Reynolds along with
Scott Purrier. And again, reminder, Art Haynes will not be with us for a few days. He is in North Carolina on his way there to receive the Missouri Broadcaster of the Year award for 2025 at a ceremony on Monday night. One of our favorites, the best mustache in the business out there in covering college sports, Eli Hoff of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the Mizzou beat writer, is on with us. Eli, good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be with you all today.
How long have you had that stash, by the way? The people will see the social media version, the video version, and say, that's a great stash.
Well, I appreciate that. So it is still a legacy of the pandemic, because at that point I was stuck at home and I was like, let me see if I can grow a mustache. And for a little bit there, it was funny because we all were wearing masks around.
Yeah.
And so you'd take off the mask and there'd be a mustache. It'd be funny to see people's reaction because they were never expecting that around there. I've just never had a reason to shave it off since.
Did it not itch with the mask on?
Oh yeah, it did a little bit, but you got used to it. I mean, we all kind of got used to the masks to some degree or another. They were itchy with or without a mustache, in my opinion.
We'll get your take on it here in a second about the new rules that came into effect, the 5 for 5 years type deal. But I want to ask you, the biggest development I think in my mind in Mizzou sports is I'm actually warming up to Eli Drinkowitz. And I don't know what's happening with me, if it's old age or what, but I watched him on with Feinbaum from the, I guess, SEC coaches meetings, and it had a great back and forth, and you know, Feinbaum said, you're pretty good at this TV deal, and he goes, well, you know what, if I don't start beating top 25 teams, they're going to chase my ass off into TV. And that's the Eli Drinkowitz I guess you probably see on a daily basis. Isn't that the kind of the fun one that you never know what's going to come out of his mouth?
Yeah, I mean, that's from my standpoint as a beat writer, that's one of the reasons why I love covering him. Anytime I go into a press conference with him, no idea what he's going to say. Yep. There's a lot of coaches out there who are really predictable, who you could almost write the story in advance and even type out what their quote's going to be in advance. With Drink, you can never do that. And I appreciate, too, he's someone who you can ask a curveball question to, and he'll take it in stride and give you his thoughts on it. He speaks his mind on it and isn't afraid to. So I love that from my standpoint because it gives me better stories to write. But I do think fans appreciate that too, because again, so many coaches just lean into the cliches and the coach speak. He breaks the mold a little bit, and I think that's a good thing. If
I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll turn on a Brent Venables press conference to go back to sleep. Because it's going to be about 35 minutes with one answer. But no, I appreciate that, Ned.
Do you have access to Coach Drink all during the summer too? Is he available?
We get him from time to time. I mean, not every week like we do in the season, because he takes a couple of vacations and stuff in the summer. But he's pretty good about appearing at different fan events. And it's one of those things where those of us who are pretty established here, like if I needed to get his perspective for a story, I can reach out and we can usually set that up.
Well, the big news yesterday, NCAA-wise, is they have approved the 5 years to play, or you have 5 years to play. No red shirt. Your clock starts at 19. We don't know all the ins and outs. Kind of help us understand how the rule will work effective immediately and going forward.
Yeah, so this is meant to simplify the concept of college eligibility, because this is something that through the pandemic and everybody getting an extra year there and then all these lawsuits and stuff, like eligibility has become really complicated. So this is the NCAA and its member schools saying we need to simplify this. So starting this fall, so starting with current players in college sports, you have 5 years to play up to 5 seasons of your college sport. There are no red shirts. There are no medical waivers. It is 5 to play 5, no matter what. The only exceptions are, I think, for military service and religious missions. Mm-hmm. So, and I mean, those are very, very rare. So if you tear your ACL 1 year, that's it. You have 4 other years. If you don't play as a freshman, you have 4 other years. It's 5 and 5. That's it. So that will make things a lot more simple. It'll be a little complicated to implement. So incoming freshmen, so students who or athletes who are about to play their first season in the next couple months, they will all be part of that 5 and 5. So they will have 5 years to play 5 seasons. Current players, so players who are going into their sophomore, junior, senior season or what have you, they have the choice. So they can stick with the old eligibility model with waivers and red shirts and all that, or they can do the 5-and-5. So that will be a little complicated just to kind of work through this. But long term, in 3 or 4 years, this should be a lot simpler because we'll stop using terms like redshirt freshman and all that and just use first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year to refer to players. That's it. It'll be easier.
Eli, would you suspect, judging from the individuals you interview and so forth and so on, that many of them will adhere to that and take that 5 years?
I think so. So let's use Trent Pierce from Mizzou men's basketball as an example here. So he is going into his 4th season at Mizzou. So he will be a senior. He played as a freshman. He played as a sophomore, played as a junior, and he'll now play as a senior. He will actually get another year as part of this. So unless he wants to go off to the NBA after next year, he can actually now play a 5th year of college basketball. So he's a beneficiary of this rule. The same goes for, on the women's basketball side, someone like Grace Slaughter at Mizzou. And I think you're going to see some variance from sport to sport on how much this is used. So in men's college basketball, where you see a lot of one-and-dones, you might not see as many 5th-year guys, right? But a sport like women's basketball, where players have to stay in 4 years before they can go pro, they may be more likely to actually take up that 5th year. So I think how much of an effect this has will vary a little sport to sport. But again, across the board, it's going to clear things up. And for current athletes, some of them will get an extra year, which they will like.
So explain the part to me about your clock starts at age 19, the year after that or the semester after that. Because, for example, Jackson Cantwell left Nixa at semester. He was 17 years old. He goes down there to join the Miami football program. If this had happened this coming winter, what would be his rule? Would he get an extra year, or does his clock start even at 17 because he went early? I don't understand that part.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't know about the starting early. I think his clock will still start this year. The 19 element was mostly inserted because of the influx of international recruits that we've seen, especially in sports like basketball, tennis, hockey. I feel like are probably the ones that see that the most. And that's meant to be in there because, you know, if you're coming from somewhere in Eastern Europe, you're not following the same recruiting pattern of a kid in Kansas City, right? So the clock starts for you the academic year after you turn 19. So that's where you'll see the NCAA refer to this policy as age-based, where essentially at that point, you can't be 25 years old and playing because your clock started when you were 19. So it's meant to be a little more there. The 19 aspect will apply more to international recruits than it will to folks coming from here.
So Jackson Cantwell turned 18 in May. He starts officially his freshman season this fall. He will have 5 years, right?
Correct. Yes. So it's your first year or your first year after you start 19, whichever comes first. So the goal is to keep college athletics young people is basically the premise here.
But Eli, doesn't the NFL have an age limit as to individuals who they bring in?
So the NFL requires you to have 3 years on a college roster. So the NFL will happily take somebody who's 20 years old. That's what Armand Nembo, who was drafted in the first round out of Mizzou a couple years ago, the appeal with him was that he hadn't turned 21 yet. So you'll still see some of that. And that's where, again, just because these athletes can play a 5th year doesn't mean all of them will. Mm-hmm. Players who can jump to the pros early are still going to take advantage of that. It's just now they can have up to 5 years if they want those.
But an individual who really needs to physically mature to get himself eligible for the NFL would probably exercise that 5 year?
Yes, definitely. And let's also keep in mind the NIL component here, that these players can earn a good amount of money. So that's one more year where a lot of these guys can earn 6 figures, and that might be an amount of money that they're not making outside of their sport. So that's where you'll see the 5th year come into play a little more.
The unfortunate off-season news from Mizzou football, Ahmad Hardy getting shot in the leg down in Mississippi at a biker bar. What's the latest on him? It seems like it's pretty vague in terms of when he'll be ready, when he'll return. What have you been able to find out in that regard?
Yeah, still no definitive answer on whether he'll be ready. The word out of Mizzou football is still just he's recovering, which can mean a whole lot of things. What has been made very clear to me is that Ahmad Hardy would like to play this season. There is no question of his desire to come back and play for Mizzou this year. The last I heard from Coach Drink was that the doctors are having to hold him back, that he feels he is ready to be ramping up, and the doctors are saying we have to be careful here. This is a serious injury. So I'm guessing we'll probably get a little bit better confirmation here in about a month when Mizzou appears at SEC Media Days down in Tampa. That's the unofficial start to the preseason, but that also marks a couple of weeks before fall camp. And once you get into fall camp, that's when they'll kind of know. Again, it's hard for me to speculate because we haven't even gotten confirmation of what the exact injury is. Like we know he suffered a gunshot wound to the thigh. That can mean a lot of different things depending on a whole lot of different variables. So we'll see. Hopefully in a few weeks we get a little bit more of an update. But I'll also add this. The longer we go without an update, the worse the chances of him playing become. You know, if he's going to be good to go for this year, Mizzou has every incentive to say that as soon as possible. So we'll see what winds up happening.
And that was my next follow-up with that is, you just answered it, is we don't know how the extent of getting shot in the leg. Why is that so secretive at this point, do you think?
I think for a few different reasons. It is in Mizzou's best interest to keep the possibility of him playing this year alive for as long as possible. For fan base morale, for ticket sales, for hype around this team, and probably within that locker room too, right? Like you don't, if you're Mizzou, you don't want to rule out Ahmad Hardy until you absolutely have to, if that point arrives. So there's one element there. There's also the kind of personal component here. Like, this is not a football injury, and so maybe you can make the argument that Ahmad Hardy deserves a little more privacy around his recovery with that. It also might be something where they don't necessarily know. Like when the incident happened in May, he underwent emergency surgery, and some of that was just to kind of figure out what was going on, right? You know, these injuries are not as simple as you do an MRI and you see, okay, the ACL's torn and you can go in and operate. It's more complicated than that. So I think it's a variety of those factors.
Yeah, I think you just made a very cogent point, too. It is more than just a gunshot wound because there was a surgical procedure involved, and that requires a lot of time in and of itself.
Exactly. And again, this we now know with sports, when you sprain your ankle, when you tear your ACL, when you break a bone, like, you can say, all right, you have a pretty set time frame for what that's going to look like. Mm-hmm. You don't have that for gunshot wounds in football. It's a very different type of injury they're having to navigate.
Is there also maybe a piece of this because Drinkowitz is a pretty sly guy and just keep the entire SEC and non-con schedule guessing as to what maybe they're going to face this fall?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can rule that out, right? Like, because there's no incentive for Mizzou to be overly public with his status right now. Like, people would like to know, but that's not leverage. That's not anything there. I guess maybe there's a sports betting component to it in some capacity, but he might enjoy some of the mystery around this. I don't know. We'll see when he decides to actually clear this up, which again, I think will probably be next month, but it could be longer. He can keep this going as long as he sees fit.
Well, you can rest assured it'll be a hot topic at the SEC football meetings coming up next month, the media days and all that. You've been doing this for a while. Give us kind of where the scale is in terms of the level of optimism for Mizzou football this fall. Where do you think they'll be picked in the preseason in the SEC? And what do you think? Is this probably the best offense that Drink has had coming in?
Yeah, so as far as where they'll be picked, I think probably still middle of the pack. Mizzou's reputation has improved the last few years in the conference. That said, I'm still not sure. I don't think Mizzou's going to be picked top 6 in the SEC, just in the eyes of the rest of the conference, right? There will be people who buy stock in some of the blue blood programs before they really buy into what Mizzou has. That said, yeah, I do think there's a lot more optimism around the offense. Austin Simmons is a name that people in the SEC know because a year ago at this time he was going to be Lane Kiffin's starter at Ole Miss. So I think there's optimism there. Especially if Ahmad Hardy is cleared and good to go, that's going to raise a lot of folks' estimations because everyone knows how good he is. Some of the additions to the receiving core, like Caden Lee, I think that's going to earn some points with this. Now, the defense is almost entirely newcomers. It's not going to be a lot of names that people know. So what the kind of increase to the offense plus a decrease to the defense, that might just be they might cancel each other out and kind of keep Mizzou's stock the same. We'll see. Again, I would guess this is a team that preseason is right around the fringes of the top 25 nationally.
In your opinion, Eli, the strength of schedule is what?
Tougher than last year. You're adding another SEC conference game, first of all. So just based on that alone, it's going to be more difficult. But looking through this year's schedule compared to what Mizzou saw the last 2 years, you do really realize how favorable the schedule had been in both 2024 and 2025. That Mizzou has Texas and Texas A&M and Oklahoma coming to Columbia. Mizzou has to go to Georgia. It's going to be more difficult. Even playing at Kansas in week 2, that's a game Mizzou should win, but playing at KU is more difficult than hosting KU. So this will be a more difficult schedule because of that. I still think this team has the chance to win a lot of games in there. But last year, 8 wins almost felt like the floor. I think 8 wins will be a little tougher just based on the quality of opponent this year.
Eli, we always appreciate your time and your information and explaining things to us that our old minds can't process, like this 5 for 5. Before we let you go, you said Dennis Gates and Mizzou basketball have beefed up their non-con and what's come out so far?
Yes. So Dennis Gates, I heard the comments, I guess, that he needed to schedule a little bit more. So Mizzou will be playing some schools you've actually heard of this year. They're playing Nebraska and Kansas City. They already had KU on the books in Kansas City. So 2 games in Kansas City. They're going to play Marquette in Chicago, which will be a little bit different, playing at United Center there, and then playing Illinois per usual in St. Louis, also adding the SLU Billikens to the schedule in St. Louis. So 5 relatively marquee non-conference games, but also at neutral sites, which is interesting. None of those games will happen in Como. They're taking the show on the road. Very good. Eli, enjoy the USA Soccer match tonight. You've got your USA jersey on for the interview. Start the chants now, okay? I'll be singing around the house all day. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
He's Eli Hobb, visiting with us from St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Timeout. Back in a second. And the starting lineup is the finishing lineup now because we're in that very serious stretch run. We are. Very much thanks to all of our guests today. We've crammed 4 into the show. Tomorrow, big show as well. We're looking forward. JVT, Jonathan Van Tobel, is going to join us from the Visa Network, talk about the NFL futures. Their NFL betting guide from Visa is out, and it's packed with information, so we'll talk more about that tomorrow. So we are out of time, folks. Thanks very much for being with us. Ned Reynolds along with Scott Purrier and for Art Haynes. See ya. See ya.